This meeting is being recorded.
All right. Welcome, everybody. I'm really glad to see you all here with Raleigh, who's going to be helping to facilitate a deeper discussion based upon John O'Donohue's Book of Blessings, to bless a space between us. And we have a surprise guest who has a lot of experience with John. And I'm Tracy with Met How at Home. Thanks so much, everyone, for being here, and for the folks coming in on the YouTube. Welcome as well. And I'm going to pass it over to you, Raleigh.
Thank you. So first of all, I want to say that I'm totally honored that you showed up today, because I'm not a poet expert. And as with the usual things like this I do, I have no idea how this is going to unfold, but I'm just going to invite you all into this space with the following format. So there are so many things to talk about with John O'Donohue, whether it's his little introductory pieces, his other books, his poems, his blessings. But I'm not going to be a talking head, so I'm not going to lecture today virtually at all. What I'm hoping is that we can share together his writing and inspiration and what touches us about it. That's really the goal today. So Tracy and I have invited, I think, most of you to think about bringing a poem, one of his blessings from the book today, or anything else that he's written, and then share how it touches you. So that's really the goal, and we'll just get to as many people as we can today, and we'll just pick up again next week. I think there's a theme here, and that's how are we constantly transforming? How is every day an opportunity to begin again, take some risk, open, and experience transformation? So I think that's what I love so much about his work. I'd like to introduce my neighbor, Shannon Farnham, who I only recently learned is a longtime friend of John O'Donohue's before his premature passing in 2008. And I've invited her to introduce him from her own personal experience. And then we're going to let John read for you a poem visually on YouTube. Tracy will screen share. And then I'm going to take whoever wants to read a poem, and we'll just get started. So welcome, Shannon.
Thank you. So I know quite a few of you. I'm seeing a lot of familiar faces here. And I want to thank Linda, because during a meeting at our church, she commented about this because she knew I knew John. So that's how I tracked down Raleigh. So I met John in 2003 and actually had a dream about him. And from there went on and realized I needed to meet this person. And we ended up becoming very dear friends. I would spend 10 days with him in Ireland in 2003, and then went back every year up until 2007, his last journey that he did. He used to do 10-day journeys around Connemara and County Clare and out to the Inishmore and the Aran Islands, all meditation and lecture and hiking and that sort of thing. I also did two or three workshops with him on the Oregon coast that he used to do every year. And then we did one in California as well. So I became friends with him. Not everyone who did a journey with him, I'm sure, became a fast friend of his, but there was just a connection that we had. And a lot of people, John was raised on a family farm. We went hiking on his farm, his family's farm. His father had long passed away, but his mother, Josie, I knew as well. And PJ, his brother, and I are still friends. So I spent a lot of time we just got to be friends and became very close and would exchange emails. And I actually
tell us a little about him. So
John, I was going to say, being a farmer, this is an aspect that people don't necessarily know about John. From what I know, Gaelic was actually his first language and English his second. And then after he decided to go into the priesthood. Once he was in the priesthood, he moved to Tübingen, Germany to go to college to get his doctorate in theological philosophy, moved there, learned German, and then got his doctorate in theological philosophy. So if anyone speaks German, he also has a book on Hegel that's in German, has never been translated into English, unfortunately. I wish they would. But he was, to me, probably one of the kindest people I've ever met, with a very, and I'm not heavily Christian, I'm a Celtic Christian. My Christianity is very nature-based, but very Christ-like, very understanding, compassionate, accepting of all people, all races, all types. And because he is or was that accepting and open, I think he's still, I don't think there will ever be a time when his work isn't just, I guess I would say his work isn't just something that every person needs at any point. I mean, he's been gone for, what has it been, 15 years now, something like that. So, he's been gone for quite a few years, but it's always still relevant, the stuff that he talks about, because he very much understood the human condition and was compassionate to everyone and very understanding. I remember him telling a story about when he was in the priesthood, a young lady who had become pregnant, and the women in the village were being a little harsh on her and judging her and talking about her, and he never could get her to tell him who was having the issue with her and who was doing this. So instead, he preached a sermon the next Sunday on judgment, and was able from there to get the point across to the women of the village that you don't criticize this young lady who's pregnant out of wedlock and all these things. So he found ways to work his message, but just a very kind, compassionate, understanding person. And John was 6'4", so a very large guy, big guy, great laugh, wonderful to go out to a pub and listen to music. And so, but I think he's still always just going to be someone that people can relate to, regardless of how long he's been gone.
So just to recap a few historical things about him, he was born in 1957 and died in his sleep at age 52 in 2008.
Yeah.
And when she mentioned that he grew up on a farm, he grew up in County Clare, kind of in the western part of Ireland. And he's described as a poet and a philosopher. So he was in the priesthood for 19 years, but then left and got married, had a family. But I think has been close to.
Nope. He never did marry. They were engaged.
Never did marry. Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
And
in any
no
case, well, thank you, Shannon. I really appreciate the personal touch that you bring to this
you're
discussion.
welcome. And one little thing on your intro when you were talking about how the transfer, my favorite poem of John's, and it's very short. Matter of fact, he used to say it's kind of an unfinished poem, but it was in Connemara Blues, one of his first books, and it's fluent, and it says, it's just one sentence basically, and it says, "I would love to live like a river flows, carried by the surprise of its own unfolding." And my other favorite poem actually happens to be the one that Tracy had already planned on showing, so that just worked out nicely. But
thank you for the nice handoff.
So yes,
Tracy, want to share a poem?
Yeah, you bet. I know. I'm just writing that down. Fluent. Thank you so much, Shannon. Thanks for,
No, thank you.
I can feel that presence, of John O'Donohue, and I just, yeah, I love that. All right, here we go. I am going to share my screen. I have to come back because Chromebook doesn't, well, maybe it's fine if I'm muted. Okay, we'll go like this. Could you see that?
Yes,
Yes.
Okay.
perfect.
Can you still see it?
Yes.
Okay, great. Oopsie, I need to go back to the beginning. I already listened to it here. Here we go.
On the day when the weight deadens on your shoulders and you stumble, may the clay dance to balance you. And when your eyes freeze behind the grey window and the ghost of loss gets into you, may a flock of colours, indigo, red, green, and azure blue, come to awaken in you a meadow of delight. When the canvas frays in the currach of thought, and a stain of ocean blackens beneath you, may there come across the waters a path of yellow moonlight to bring you safely home. May the nourishment of the earth be yours. May the clarity of light be yours. May the fluency of the ocean be yours. May the protection of the ancestors be yours. And so may a slow wind work these words of love around you, an invisible cloak to mind your life.
Okay. I just love that one. I've read it to many, many people at the end of a massage. I also do body work, and I discovered John O'Donohue like quite a few years ago and started reading these blessings at the end of people's sessions. And
So what touches you, Tracy, about this particular poem?
well, so many of us have a bit of that Irish blood in us, right? And so even when I was a little kid, and I think that, I had a grandmother who was very like, we're Irish, we have that Irish in us. And so there's something about just that Irish blessing, right? And that's always touched me when I was a little kid. And then when I would write my own little cards, I would do the may the blah, 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 something, and so there's that piece of may the nourishment of the earth be yours, that's like the first thing. He talked about those pieces that are so universal, as you were saying, Shannon, like he understood the human condition and he spoke to that. It's just like when the gray when the gray window of loss gets in you, or whatever that was that he said, it's like, yeah, we know that feeling. And he just presents these like beautiful antidotes, and then comes back with just those core things, the earth, the light, the fluency of the ocean, these things that are with us all the time, and are such miracles, but they just are always can be overlooked so immediately. I just and the protection of the ancestors. I think that's just something that's like so deep in us. So it speaks to that part of me that is I think is always just longed so much for that deep connection with roots and ancestry, because so many of us here on this continent have a deep forgetting of our roots, of the land where we came from, and the stories of the ancestors. And I think it just speaks to that place of longing in me. And that's, yeah,
Cool.
I love
Thank
it.
you. So Shannon, you also mentioned it's a very special poem for you. What touches you in this poem?
So he wrote that poem for Josie, his mom, after his father passed. And I knew Josie. I saw her every year when we would go to Ireland, and we would go and have big dinners and stuff. And we would hike on their family farm up into the Burren country. So there's that. And John was very connected. And if you read his writings, he was very connected to the concept that we are all come from the clay, which comes back to the old Celtic traditions. And that when you meet people, you actually are meeting people who come from the same clay source as you, these people that you have these tight connections with, kind of like John and I did. So that very much that earth-based that gets lost in us. Another kind of funny anecdote on that poem. Someone sent him a card with that poem on it that they had found somewhere in South America. I want to say like Brazil, and it was credited to an Irish nun. And John was like, okay, so if you give out my stuff, please, at least he said, I've done a lot of transforming in my life, but never quite that much to go to being an Irish nun. But yeah, I love Banach, and it's especially to hear him say it. But yeah, it's one of my favorites, and I do gift it quite a bit to people just as an awareness, that life goes on. So
yeah, thanks. Just a comment about gifting his poems. I think that's one of the reasons I find this book so special is no matter what's going on in my friends' lives or families' lives, there's usually a poem in there I can send them just at the right moment. Like I sent one out yesterday to a friend of mine here who's an artist, and he has a lovely poem about a blessing for the artist. And I don't know, it's one thing I really love. So I wonder if I can invite anyone else in our group to share a poem they brought that they'd like to read, and then do just the reflection that you heard.
Well, I brought one on friendship, and I will read it.
Does it have a page in the book?
No.
No. Okay.
Friendship Blessing, John O'Donohue, Anam Cara. And Anam Cara is a person who can reveal the hidden intimacies of your life. Okay. May you be blessed with good friends. May you learn to be a good friend to yourself. May you be able to journey to that place in your soul where there is great love, warmth, and feeling and forgiveness. May this change you. May it transfigure that which is negative, distant, or cold in you. May you be brought into the real passion, kinship, and affinity of belonging. May you treasure your friends. May you be good to the land. May you be there. I'm sorry, I read that wrong. May you be good to them, and may you be there for them. May they bring you all their blessings, challenges, truth, and light that you need for your journey. May you always be in the gentle nest of belonging with your Anam Cara. Well, for me, that's my life. I look at people who are wonderful artists or who have talent with writing and all, and I say, well, what's my talent? And I think my talent is that I know how to be a friend and love a friend. And so that's a beautiful poem.
Lovely. Very true. So anything that poem struck in any of the rest of you that you might want to mention? Oh, Wayne's here. So anybody want to bring another poem?
Okay, well, I'll step in here. Every morning I make a fire and then I make my little breakfast and sit in front of the fire. And I'm so amazed at flame. And then John O'Donohue, he is such a Celt. His whole life was nature, I think. And somehow Christianity or Catholicism wove into that, which is very interesting. And I feel I'm very Irish too. And I was brought up by an Irish nanny. And then I went to Ireland when I was a teenager, and Ireland really struck me deeply. And here it is, in praise of fire. Let us praise, this is on page 12, if anybody wants to. Let us praise the grace and risk of fire. In the beginning, the word was red, and the sound was thunder, and the wound in the unseen spilled forth the red weather of being. In the name of the fire, the flame, and the light, praise the pure presence of fire that burns from within without thought of time. The hunger of fire has no need for the reliquary of the future. It adores the eros of now, where the memory of the earth in flames that lick and drink the air is made to release its long enduring forms in a powder of ashes left for the wind to decipher. As air intensifies the hunger of fire, may the thought of death breathe new urgency into our love of life. As fire cleanses dross, may the flame of passion burn away what is false. As short as the time from spark to flame, so brief may the distance be between heart and being. May we discover beneath our fear embers of anger to kindle justice. May courage cause our lives to flame in the name of the fire and the flame and the light. I love that part of it in the Catholic faith. You bless yourself in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Ghost, whatever that meant. But I love his in the name of the fire and the flame and the light. Beautiful.
Well,
I
there's
have
so many levels to that poem.
Mhm.
Um,
I mean, if you stare into the fire long enough, you leave your ego. And there it is. Life flames up. I can't add any more to that one.
I love that line about may the fire, kindle your social justice spirit or something. It's like, I don't know, there's so many lovely little pictures in that poem that I can visualize as you read. It's nice when we read slowly, isn't it? Anybody else have any thoughts that came up for you as she read that?
I do. So I believe, Bill, you've probably, who's been to Ireland and the West specifically? So the west of Ireland, though a heavily Catholic area like all of Ireland, it was very interesting when I was traveling there. I would be there on May Day, and there were, like plant. One woman told us, she said, well, do not bring any whitethorn, which is a plant, into the cabin on May Day. And she said, John will kind of freak out. And I'm like, really, why? And she said, well, it's a bad omen in the pagan Celtic traditions. And though John was very devout Catholic, matter of fact, one of the heartiest laughs I ever heard about from him was because he had left the priesthood and he had started dating. Someone said, well, maybe you could become an Episcopalian and then you could marry as well as be a priest. And he just busted up laughing. He was like, no, no, he's definitely Catholic, but you scratch the surface in the west of Ireland. And this woman who was helping run the tour said, you scratch the surface and they're pure pagan here. So those old traditions were still there with this layer of Catholicism up on top of it, very devout Catholicism, but also those underpinnings. So that's where you get the fire and the mix. I don't have there was a book they put out posthumously that his brother reads. That's all it's like earth, stones, water, or something like that, based on just the writings that he had in his house from previous years.
Thank you, Shannon. I have more Irish blood in my body than any other. My mother was Alice Mooney. My gentle Irish grandfather was Ray Mooney. The Moonies, of course, come from 2 counties in Ireland. And my grandmother was Mary Ryan. The Ryans come from County Clare. Anyway, the first time Diana and I spent time in Ireland was a winter. No. Anyway, it was about 48 years ago. And it was the shoulder season, the off season. And we were driving our Volkswagen bus around. And at that time, almost nobody owned a car in Ireland, especially in the west of Ireland, which is more impoverished. But what they do, if a person has to go somewhere, they just walk out, stand on the road, and then they didn't just stand there, and the next car coming by will stop and invite them to come in and take them wherever they're going. Now that is pure Irish. How many countries would you see that? You don't even have to hold up your thumb to hitchhike. Anyway, to me, that was an insight into the Irish character, into the Irish heart. We were driving along and this lady was just standing at the side of the road. And of course we stopped and she got in and she started chattering away. And Diana said, I'm really sorry, but we don't speak Gaelic. We don't speak Irish. And she said, oh, and she apologized. And we always, here in the West, in this part of Ireland, we always speak Irish, except when the strangers come, when the visitors come.
The strangers.
So, but that was a couple of really good insights into the heart of the Irish people. It was very apparent then when there were few strangers living in the country. From the poem that Diana read, let us praise the grace and risk of fire. Love the title. Down in the 3rd stanza, he says, the hunger of fire. I like this. The hunger of fire has no need for the reliquary of the future. It adores the eros of now. Eros, of course, is a Greek word meaning, and a universal word meaning passion, not just sexual passion, but passion for anything, passion for taste, passion for listening, hearing, and it adores the eros of now. What he's saying is a passion for living now, living in the present moment. And anybody who writes that, you know that the person, John O'Donohue, he has learned to live in the present moment, in the now, which is one of the highest capabilities of humans. To be able to live in the present moment, forget the future, forget the past, because they don't exist. Just live in an intense awareness of the present moment, of the now, the eros of now. Thank you, Diana, for your reading, and Shannon for your readings. It's wonderful. And Raleigh, yours was superb also.
I haven't actually read one yet, but Bill, do you have a poem you want to read, or
Well,
should I open it to anybody else?
Diana was reading for both of us, so I didn't bring one. Although
That's okay.
there is one that I really like. It's one that you know very well because it's a blessing before you eat food at a meal. And some of you are familiar with it. I suppose I could, or Diana, do you want to read that one? On page 91, if you have the book.
91.
Sounds cool.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll read it.
About
Okay.
14.
Grace before meals. I think we have been over at Raleigh and Peter's house when Peter or Raleigh read this. As we begin this meal with grace, let us become aware of the memory carried inside the food before us, the quiver of the seed awakening in the earth, unfolding in a trust of roots and slender stems of growth. On its voyage toward harvest, the kiss of rain and surge of sun, the innocence of animal soul that never spoke a word, nourished by the earth to become today our food. The work of all the strangers whose hands prepared it, the privilege of wealth and health that enables us to feast and celebrate.
It's really great.
Thank
Lovely.
you.
I think it's so interesting what you all choose, you know, it's like, I think his poems touch each of us differently, or his blessings. And I think depending what moment we are in our life, that how he touches us can change. So I feel like I've just heard that for the first time, and I know I haven't, but it just depends on what day it is, you know?
Mhm.
That's what's special about this kind of writing, I think.
Mhm.
So welcome, Susan. We are using the hour now to just read a poem that we love and to reflect, if we're willing, on why we picked it or how it touched us. And so I want to see if anyone else has one to read.
I have one.
Okay.
I'm like Carolyn. John O'Donohue is brand new to me, but I am going to Ireland for 2 weeks in May, and we're hiking the Aran Islands. And so when I saw this come up, I thought, well, this probably is something I should investigate. And I'm so glad I did. So the blessing I'm reading is a blessing for presence. And as you said, Raleigh, it speaks to me in the moment.
What
May
page?
you awaken.
Do you have a page? Do you have a page number?
No, I got this off
Okay,
the internet.
That's fine.
It's from, okay. May you awaken to the mystery of being here and enter the quiet immensity of your own presence. May you have joy and peace in the temple of your senses. May you receive great encouragement when new frontiers beckon. May you respond to the call of your gift and find the courage to follow its path. May the flame of anger free you from falsity. May warmth of heart keep your presence aflame and anxiety never linger about you. May your outer dignity mirror an inner dignity of soul. May you take time to celebrate the quiet miracles that seek no attention. May you be consoled in the secret cemetery of your soul. May you experience each day as a sacred gift, woven around the heart of wonder.
Cool.
Hmm.
Woven around the heart of wonder.
The secret cemetery of your soul. Oh my gosh.
No, cemetery,
So
not cemetery.
I was thinking the
Symmetry.
cemetery.
Oh, sorry.
Well,
Did
that's
I-
interesting too.
oh,
Symmetry. That was lovely. Karen.
Symmetry. Did I say cemetery?
No,
Symmetry.
you didn't. I just have a hearing
Okay.
problem. Wow.
Woven around, what was that phrase, Kay?
Oh, I loved it. That's my favorite line.
Yeah.
Woven around the heart of wonder.
Wonder. Yeah, thank you. That's beautiful.
And for me right now, I'm trying to, at this stage, I'm trying to live in the presence, not think about what might happen or what has happened, but right now.
So Kay,
That's
I
one of
just-
my all-time favorite blessings, Kay. Thank you for bringing that one. I read that,
Oh, is that
one
right?
more than any other. Yeah.
Well, the one you read was another one I had picked. So Tracy, Soul Sisters.
who else wants to read?
I do have one that Debbie Grable, who wanted to be here but couldn't be here today, that she said that she had the book open to this and read it every day during COVID, during the time when everything was locked down. So this one is for love in a time of conflict. I believe this is the one. I hope so. I hope this is the one. Okay. When the gentleness between you hardens and you fall out of your belonging with each other, may the depths you have reached hold you still. When no true word can be said or heard, and you mirror each other in the script of hurt, when even the silence has become raw and torn, may you hear again an echo of your first music. When the weave of affection starts to unravel and anger begins to sear the ground between you, before this weather of grief invites the black seed of bitterness to find root, may your souls come to kiss. Now is the time for one of you to be gracious, to allow a kindness beyond thought and hurt. Reach out with sure hands to take the chalice of your love and carry it carefully through this echoless waste until this winter pilgrimage leads you toward the gateway to spring. I'm not sure if that was actually the one that Debbie said, but that is a powerful blessing for when you get into that super stuck spot in a very close relationship. So that was that's some big medicine right there.
Lovely. Thank you, Tracy. Did anybody hear anything in that poem that touched you?
It sounded like a perfect poem, perfect blessing to read during COVID when people were incarcerated in their homes. I think I never felt incarcerated living here in the Metau because we could get out and go into the hills. But all the millions and millions of people in their apartment houses, stuck with people they imperfectly loved.
Yes.
Yeah, that would have been the poem.
So I have one. I'm been fascinated in my current life, in my present moment. Thank you, Kay. About the opportunity that those of us at our age have for growth and transformation. And so this poem this blessing particularly touches me, and it's called For a New Beginning, which might be a little odd to read at later stages of life, but I like to look at every day as a new beginning. And so let me read it, and then I'll just tell you the line that really touched me. In out of the way places of the heart, when your thoughts never think to wander, this beginning has been quietly forming, waiting until you are ready to emerge. For a long time, it has watched your desire, feeling the emptiness growing inside you, noticing how you willed yourself on, still unable to leave what you had outgrown. It watched you play with the seduction of safety and the gray promises that sameness whispered, heard the waves of turmoil rise and relent, wondered, would you always live like this? Then the delight, when your courage kindled and out you stepped into new ground, your eyes young again with energy and dream, a path of plenitude opening before you. Though your destination is not yet clear, you can trust the promise of this opening. Unfurl yourself into the grace of beginning that is at one with your life's desire. Awaken your spirit to adventure. Hold nothing back. Learn to find ease in risk. Soon you will be home in a new rhythm. Your soul senses the world that awaits you.
Nice.
I really love, that paradox of holding a little feeling of emptiness growing in you, not as a bad thing, with the draw that we often have to remain complacent, like we're pretty comfortable the way we are, why rock the boat, why take a risk? But if you let yourself, you take moments to drop down to your heart and into your soul, you can feel a longing. I think we always will feel a longing in there. I think that's what John tells us, right? And we should listen to that longing and see what is in the opening. It's a little scary, right? I find this incredibly inspiring poem and our blessing. And I recently went to a retreat in Snowmass, Colorado in December, and they had this blessing on the wall. And I'd read it before and it was one of my favorites, but I always find that uncanny, right? That you have a favorite thing and it appears in your life at the right time. And the question is, how did that happen? So
a friend calls those Holy Spirit moments.
Yeah, that's good.
And Raleigh, that's the poem that I had also.
Oh my gosh. Well, I tried to give you time to read it.
Oh, that's okay, because I'm here to learn. I am a novice and I am here to learn, but I have to tell you, I had found this poem, and the thing that strikes me about it is that while it's talking about all new beginnings, it uses the imagery of birth, the first beginning.
Yeah.
All the imagery is, that could be a poem for a newborn baby or a baby
Yeah.
about.
Yeah. The beginnings that have been quietly forming, waiting until you are ready to emerge. That's very birth-like, isn't it? Yeah.
Honestly, Raleigh, I don't mind hearing a poem again. I'm so daft sometimes. So I wouldn't mind, Jane, if you read that again. If you don't mind.
Yes, I would love it.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
I can listen.
In out of the way places of the heart where your thoughts never think to wander, this beginning has been quietly forming, waiting until you were ready to escape, to emerge, pardon me. For a long time, it has watched your desire, feeling the emptiness growing inside you, noticing how you willed yourself on, still unable to leave what you had outgrown. It watched you play with the seduction of safety and the gray promise that sameness whispers. Oh, I just lost it. It just went away on me. Oh, I'm sorry.
That's right. I'm trying
The
to find.
waves of turmoil rise and relent. Wondered, would you always live like this?
Yeah.
Then the delight when your courage kindled and out you stepped onto new ground, your eyes young again with energy and dreams, a path of plenitude opening before you. Though your destination is not yet clear, you can trust the promise of this opening. Unfurl yourself into the grace of beginning that is at once with your life's desire. Awaken your spirit to adventure. Hold nothing back. Learn to find ease in risk. Soon you will be home. And I lost it again. Soon you will be home in a new rhythm, for your soul senses the world that awaits you.
Thank you, Jane.
Sorry to bobble up on my phone. It's my old eyes.
Yeah, there's, again, the little fire image with the courage, how he like that kindle, the grace of like a little kindling of that courage that gets you to step out and then you can see the world anew. I love that line about unfurl with grace, something.
Yeah. Unfurl yourself into the grace of beginning that is at one with your life's desire. That's lovely. Yeah, I thought about Diana's poem, that kindling. The fire is a really powerful thing. It's transformative, really. Yeah.
I think I'll have to have that poem out when I say to Wayne, a lot of times I just don't want to do anything. So that's a good one too. It's okay not to do anything, but it's the attitude that needs unfurling.
Yeah, there's a lot of ways to unfurl, a lot of things that can be unfurled. That's really good.
And that whole piece of like, there's the grayness of the same, or, it's easy to get in that rhythm of sameness. There's comfort in that, but, what could be on the other side?
So I want to I just want to read a paragraph from the beginning of John's introduction that describes the difference between a blessing and a poem. And then we'll see if anybody else has something they want to read as we're beginning to draw to a close today. This is in the introduction on page Roman numeral 15. A blessing is a difficult form to render. I've endeavored to write them as poetically as possible, but they are not poems. A poem is an utterly independent linguistic object. It begins with its first syllable and ends with the last, and in between it has its own force field. In contrast, the blessing form has an eye to the outside in order to embrace and elevate whatever is happening to someone. It is direct address driven by immediacy and care. A poem is inevitably more oblique. It works deep underneath the conversation. I don't fully understand that paragraph, but it reminds me of Carolyn's poem on friendship, and why what she read is truly more of a blessing than a poem. And because what she read about friendship has an eye to the outside in order to embrace and elevate what is ever happening to someone, to her friend, us, to our friends. It's that relationship. So I could connect what Carolyn's poem felt to me and this paragraph, but I have to read this a few more times to fully understand.
I think, Raleigh, thank you for reading that, the poem versus the blessing, because I mean, what I read does say that it's a blessing, and it's like, may life give to you this joy.
Yeah, every poem he has starts, almost everyone starts with may. No, they don't all start with may, but a lot of them start with may. Yeah, may you, may. Yeah, that's great, Carolyn, thanks. So anyone else want to read?
Work on it for next week.
Yeah, so is this a good way to spend our time? Yeah, if Shannon comes next week, I might have her talk just a little bit about Celtic spirituality, because I think it provides a little more dimension. This is not a religious hour. This is a spiritual hour, I think I would call it. And I know I'm drawn to John in part because of his valuing nature. And it's throughout the entire book. And I think everything he writes is grounded in nature.
I'd like to remind, maybe for me, as I say, he is new to me. So I watched the video that Raleigh put a link to this.
Tracy did, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Tracy, it was excellent. It was just so great. And his voice is really beautiful. And he says so many good things.
Yeah, he does.
About friendship, about children, landscape, you know, and music is what language would love to be.
Oh, I love that line. I love that line.
Isn't that great? And then Celtic music is the greatest joy and the deepest pain. He talks about, and I really can relate to that, because something happens when you hear this music. It's joyful and painful at the same time.
Yeah, I would invite you to listen to that. The link that Tracy sent. It's an interview with Krista Tippett. It was done a few months before he passed away. And I took some notes because there's just like so many things we could talk about. So for next time,
can I say one quick thing?
Go ahead. Mm-hmm.
So one thing about John, though, John himself was very Catholic and very much a Christian. My background, I started Christian, left the church. I now work with another Celtic teacher named John Philip Newell, who is very much an interfaith kind of guy. His workshops have rabbis and Muslims, and John, though himself very much a Christian, I remember at one of the workshops on the Oregon coast, he would sit and talk. I was usually sitting on the hearth, keeping the fire going. But I remember him saying, he said, so God, he, she, they, it, did I cover everybody's? Did I cover everyone's aspect of God? Was very much a person who wanted to encompass everybody, wherever you came from spirituality, whatever your bent and your line was. For him, he was very much a Christian. Christ was, but never wanted to leave anyone out. And that was one of the reasons that I worked with him so well, is because I come from very much an interfaith thing. Though I consider myself a Celtic Christian and I have a relationship with Christ, I don't think that all my answers in the world come from Jesus. So, though he was a Catholic priest, he did not pigeonhole his people, or I don't even know, maybe himself, but for his followers, it didn't matter where you came from. And that's one of the things I love about, I don't have a copy of, is it To Bless the Space Between? Is that okay? I have Benedictus, which is the European version. So I got that book originally sent to me as Benedictus, but they put it out as To Bless the Space Between in the United States because they didn't think Americans could figure out what a Benedictus was. So they changed the title. But so I have two copies of Benedictus, and I always have to transpose the title. But that's one of the things I love about that, is he rarely in that he says may, and he does periodically mention God, but he doesn't really pinpoint where your light is coming from. So that's just one of the things about him to keep in mind, that you can kind of transpose it into whatever your soul feels is, your spirituality or your higher power. So
Very, very inclusive.
Yeah.
I was struck by something he said. Buddhism, he talked about Buddhism was a method, but Christianity for him was belonging. It was the homecoming. I thought that was beautiful.
Thanks for all your sharing, everyone.
Thank you, Raleigh.
So I want to make just a comment to Kay. So I went to Ireland last September with two long time women friends, and I sent each one of them a copy of one of John's books. And one was the book we were talking about today, but the other one you might consider looking at or reading before you go, particularly the latter half of the book, is called Beauty. It's one of his older books, but it really talks a lot about the connection with the land. And I found the first part of the book a little hard. It was talking about colors, and I don't know, it was a little esoteric for me, but I think it's really cool to go to a place with some sense that you bring with you, which is, I think, can be a real treasure for you as you head into your journey to travel there. So
I totally agree. And since we're hiking and we're going to be living close to the land, all of this just makes me all the more excited to go. So thank you, Raleigh, for doing this. I really appreciate you.
Yeah, you're very welcome. I'm really happy to be here.
I'm feeling the same way. We're going to be biking, but we're taking in the land. We have 3 homestays with a week.
Lovely.
Raleigh, what is the book that from which most people are reading? Is it The Landscape of Beauty?
Well, this is the book that we suggested people get.
Which one is it? Oh,
To Bless the Space Between Us.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And they had 2 copies at Trails End. I sent an email out, but maybe you jumped on after I had already sent that.
Maybe so.
But there
I'll
are
go
2,
look today.
there are 2 copies at the Trails End.
Yeah, I'll go look today. Thank you. Thank you.
So any final words? And if not, we'll see you all next week and maybe a few other people who, depending whoever shows up. But please spend some time and read. Yeah, Susan?
I just wanted to thank you and apologize for slipping in late due to life circumstances and to
Not a
be an
problem.
observer, but I certainly appreciate what I've managed to catch and what you've all offered. And I'll see you next time a little more informed.
You know, the thing I love about doing this is that you guys are doing the teaching, right? I just love that. I love that you bring your voices here. And I learn something every time. So thank you for your presence and your risk taking, and we'll see you in a week.
Okay, thank you,
Thank
Raleigh.
you, Raleigh.
Thanks, Raleigh.
you.
Sure.
Good to see you all.
Thank you, Tracy.
Thank you, Tracy.